Did you receive a home inspection that's not very favorable? Well, in this episode, we are going to talk about the 5 strategies that will help you save more money.
Hello, and welcome back to the Happy House Hacking Podcast, the podcast designed to help young people in California navigate the path to happy home ownership. We are your hosts, Owen and Camille Schwagerly. We are realtors, investors, and happy house hackers. And on today's episodes, we are going to talk about an important part of the purchasing process, repair requests, and how you can use repair requests to strategically save tens of thousands of dollars in a transaction. Okay, so we all know that first, before you buy a house, you have to get it under contract. So we call that round 1 of negotiating. And then there's going to be round 2 of negotiating, which is where you as a buyer get to conduct some more due diligence. And sometimes as you peel back layers of that onion, there's more things that you discover. And so on this podcast, we're going to share 5 tips on how to help you maximize the returns you can get during the repair request negotiating and make sure that you put more money in your pocket at the end of the day.
As agents, we are always telling our clients, just get the house under contract, get it under contract, right? Because we know once that house is under contract, that buyer is in the driver's seat the whole rest of the way. They're the ones who get to call the shots, order the inspections, do all of their due diligence on the property. It doesn't make sense to do it prior to that because we're in competition, right? We're putting in an offer contingent upon good inspections. So whenever we get the house under contract, that's a good day because we might not end up buying it, but our clients are going to be doing their reports and inspections in order to verify all the health and safety conditions about the home.
Yeah, absolutely. So tip number 1 is if you're going to be requesting some sort of repair and making a list of items you want the sellers to take care of or address, you got to prioritize health and safety issues and major systems and components. So the way it works is once you're under contract, you will typically get a home inspection and a pest inspection, especially if the sellers don't have one and they haven't provided that up front. And so that home inspector, that pest inspector, they're going to look at all those main systems and components of the house and let you know if there's any issues. Roof, plumbing, electrical, foundation. They may call out some extra items that need further inspection, and then we'll need to get a roofer out there or maybe a foundation specialist out there. So there are different tiers to that. And people, he's a generalist, the inspector, and then he'll recommend we get a specialist out there. So when we're looking at that list of items to request a repair for, this isn't a remake my house. I want you to paint the kitchens. I want you to put in the countertops and flooring. I want type of negotiation. No, this is reserved for those big ticket items and those health and safety items.
Right. That's a really good distinction because some items that come up on a home inspection, very common ones, we need a new wax ring on the toilet, right? That's something that's almost in most homes that we're seeing. And yeah, okay, that is something to take care of, but I wouldn't waste time putting that into a repair request because it's not necessarily a true immediate urgent health and safety concern that's going to detrimentally affect your ability to live in this home. And it's a small repair that you can take care of on your own. So it's really important when you are making these repair requests that you're narrowing them down to what are your deal breakers, because in this round of negotiation, if you don't get the requests that you're wanting, well, then you can back out and move on and get your deposit back and go find another house. Or you can still move forward and say, sure, I still love the home. I know I'm not getting any compensation for the items, but I still love it and I want to buy it still. So it's really important to just choose what items you're requesting wisely. So that way the seller will take you seriously and actually offer you the concessions you need to make your home livable.
Yes. And this is where your real estate professional should be helping you artfully craft that repair request list by prioritizing those big ticket items. And this is something that we've done really successfully over the years where we found mold. And it's like, we didn't know that when we first went under contract. There was a roof leak and we wanted that addressed. And then there was foundation issues. A house was actually sliding down a hill. There's different things that come up on these home inspection requests or home inspections, and that type of information is what you want to put in those big ticket items. Like, we were able to negotiate one time a client, it was like an $8,000 replacement for the HVAC system, which was about to fail. And so we saved our clients that $8,000 back in their pocket by getting the sellers to credit it and cover that. So big ticket items, not just every little thing. Like, another common one we see is the GFCIs.
Oh, yeah.
Older homes, they need to have GFCI in order to be at the current electrical code, but a lot of homes don't have that. So weighing pros and cons of what are the big ticket items, what are those deal breakers, like Camille said, and then moving forward, making your list, going for those big items.
Right. So when you have the opportunity to submit a repair request, you can ask for one of three things. You can ask for a price reduction, a closing cost credit, or the seller to actually do the repairs prior to closing escrow. And in some situations, you might even be able to justify a mix of all three. So let's say, for example, the pest inspection comes back saying, yeah, we need to fumigate the home. We need to replace some of the dry rot on the outside of the house. It's going to be $5,000. Well, you could ask the seller to take care of that before closing escrow. And the seller might say, yeah, I'm not going to do that because the cost to get someone out there to replace the wood and then fumigate is going to take too long. That is more costly to me than the actual dollar amount. And I don't want to delay our close of escrow. We're supposed to close escrow in 2 weeks. I'm not able to get the pest guys out here for a month. So I'm not going to do it. We want to set up our clients for success in order to get concessions. So in that situation, it's in your best interest to get a closing cost credit or a price reduction. So we often tell our clients that's just a matter of money now versus money later. So if you want the money right now after the close of escrow in order to make those repairs, well, then we'll ask for a closing cost credit of $5,000. So that way, that's $5,000 less you have to bring to the table. So after closing, you can do those repairs and call the pest company and take care of it. A price reduction, yeah, $5,000 off your purchase price is good. However, it's really not going to save you any money on your mortgage or property taxes. So, in a way, it's not going to be as beneficial as it would be to get a closing cost credit in that particular situation.
Hmm. Yeah, unless you're all cash, you don't have a mortgage,
Yep.
maybe the price reduction makes more sense. However, for most people, if it's a $5,000 differential, the monthly payment's not going to swing too much one way or another. So it makes sense to have that cash now. And so that leads us to tip number 2, which is knowing which of those 3 options works best for the seller's needs. If they're under a time crunch and they really got to be somewhere fast, they're not going to want to do the repair work themselves, and they're going to want to do the credit or the price reduction. Or if they're maybe a contractor, maybe they want to do the repairs and they know how to do it, they're licensed, bonded, insured, great. They could do the repair work themselves, save themselves the cash, and make sure that you get that house in good condition. So, tip number 2, make sure when you're putting in your repair request, you know which of those 3 strategies is ultimately most likely going to get accepted by the seller.
Yep. Our third recommendation is to just get multiple opinions. We want to make sure that we are being earnest in our efforts when we're representing the buyer and say, yeah, we found mold. The home inspector found mold. We confirmed it with a mold inspector. And we got another mold inspector to come out to verify the cost of remediation. And sometimes they do differ greatly, and it might make more sense to go with one over the other depending on their services offered. But it's also showing good faith to the seller of, hey, this is a really serious problem. I've gotten multiple bids about this. You're
Mhm.
welcome to even confirm it on your end, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, by getting your own inspector out here. And then we can decide together. But ultimately, we need some type of compensation or else we can't move forward. And that's that type of dialogue we like to have. So having multiple bids is beneficial. We've also seen some clients who are very, very detail oriented, and this is just the shining moment for them, right?
They
This is
love
the
it.
time where they have their spreadsheet and they go through and they add up the total cost of everything. And they're like, yeah, I need this exact dollar amount down to the penny in order for me to move forward. And honestly, those times where we have gone and asked the seller for concessions down to the penny rather than a general rounded up figure, those are the times the seller has said yes and been much more agreeable because it's truly rooted in reality versus just, yeah, I'd like to have $10,000 so I can do these updates to my house. The seller's going to say no. That's not rooted in reality as much
Mhm.
as it is when you have all the reports, the spreadsheet, the final number down to the penny to prove the point. So that's our recommendation for sure, is to make sure you are so detailed in this and you are narrowing it down and even saying, yeah, I'll concede on a few of these other items, but these items right here, these are the true health and safety concerns that are most important to me. And that's why I need a price
Mhm.
reduction or a closing cost credit.
Yeah, these are my non-negotiables. I need these. These are the top priorities. There were some other things, maybe the electrical I wanted to get fixed or addressed, yet I put it all in there, and then you may concede on a few as part of the negotiation, but you got to know what your top ones are. And here's another tip within that tip. Once you provide the listing agent and the seller those bids, they are required to disclose those bids to any future buyer.
Right, right.
So, one of the things we do really well is as we're presenting the new information about, hey, look, we didn't know this when we wrote the offer. We've discovered some things that have actually shocked us. We had no idea that there was this much pest work, $6,000 of like dry rot, and there's an active infestation of termites in the house that are currently eating the seller's house. So, we want to communicate that to them and let them know, hey, we need something in order to move forward in confidence. So the if you cancel on us or if we cancel on you, you're going to have to use that exact same information and disclose that to any future buyer. And guess what? They're probably going to ask you for the same thing, if not more, or maybe even at a lower price. So it is in the seller's best interest oftentimes to work with the buyer they have under contract versus canceling, starting over. Because ultimately, what if they've already got their new home lined up? They've
Right.
got a close date they need to meet on their purchase, and they will be highly motivated to work with you. So that's another part of this is knowing the seller's motivation, which rolls us right into tip number 4. Leverage the market conditions. So market conditions, as we know, really dictate whether or not it's a buyer market, seller market. And what this comes down to is, are homes selling fast or slow? And sometimes there's very low inventory. We've had that for several years. Not a lot of options available. It's been a pretty strong seller market. However, even within that market, there are homes that sit on the market for a very long time. High days on market. Something was wrong in the listing price, or maybe the marketing of it hasn't been the best. But those types of properties being on the market for a lot longer are going to have more motivated sellers typically. And then another category that really works out well is back on market. So this is the category of homes that they were under contract and then they failed to sell. So they fell out of escrow, they're back on market. Those sellers are typically more highly motivated because they thought in their mind, oh, I sold my house, it's over. But then it cancels and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to get this thing sold. They're also more likely, we found, to negotiate with you and give you those credits.
Right. And you're also about 2 weeks away from closing by the time you're getting to the point of having a repair request that the seller's like, well, I'm 2 weeks away. I could concede $10,000 right now in order to close on time, or risk conceding that much more and not close for another month or two.
Mm-hmm. And not all sellers are going to be realistic.
That's right.
Like a lot of times, the reason why those homes are sitting on the market for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and the price hasn't moved is because the sellers are unrealistic on what they think their home is worth. And so those are the homes that do sit for a long time. and then they don't end up selling. They expire, cancel, or what we call fail to sell because of some sort of unrealistic expectation that the seller may have had. And so, tip number 5, this is the most important tip. And if you can master this in any negotiation, you are going to do extremely well. It's you got to have walkaway power.
Right.
Walkaway power. Hey, if you say no to my repair request, I'm not going to buy this house. You know what? If you really have that conviction and you convey that to the listing agent and the seller, like, look, there's another house that just popped up. We could totally go buy that one. It looks like they have clean inspections. Why should we buy your house? You have to incentivize me to buy your house. If you want the house more than they want your offer, well, then you're not in a strong negotiating position.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that walkaway power is really key. And it has to be true and earnest. If you are like, "Oh, well, I hope I get it, but I still want the house," then okay, no problem. But if you're like, "Yeah, this is my deal breaker, my non-negotiables. If I don't get the concessions for this, I'm canceling and I'm getting my deposit back. I'm moving on." Then that's great because that shows the seller you are serious. And
Mm-hmm.
then it puts the ball in the seller's court of saying, "All right, well, I better get on it or else I'm going to have to go back on market and risk being a failed listing." So it is really important that you narrow down all of your requests for repairs into a way where you are confident that you can walk away from this house if you don't end up getting all of the things that you ask for. And that's how you know you're asking for true health and safety concerns. What are those deal breakers? And like I said before, if it's really not a deal breaker, we can still request and the seller might still say yes to it. And if they don't, then that's okay. You know, we move on. But that walkaway power is key to, like you said, Owen, any negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And when you are trying to get a property under contract, you just want to paint the picture that up front, you're going to have to compete. If it's a seller's market or if it's like a super hot listing, that's where things do get a little wily, out of control. A lot of offers come in, bidding war, highest and best, and you're just going to have to be strong out the gate. And so if you have walkaway power before you even get your foot and in the door or you're at the negotiating table, then you won't ever get a house in that type of market. So you do want to make sure you get your offer under contract first and then use that walkaway power in the negotiating process to claw back some of those concessions and costs. And so sometimes we've had buyers ask us, "Oh, should we get a home inspector before we go under contract?
Oh, no way.
Should we get my contractor out here to give me bids before I write my offer or submit it?"
No, definitely not.
Don't do it. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of the contractor's time. It's a waste of your time, the seller's time. And you want to have it under contract first. And once you have it under contract, you actually have a right in the purchase agreement
Yes.
to do inspections. Whereas if you're not under contract, you have no legal right to inspect somebody else's house.
Right. And it's going to be a waste of your money because if you don't end up getting the house, well, you're still out that $500 home inspection. And it's much easier to be out that $500 home inspection once you've been under contract, acting in good faith, and you decide you are walking away from the house. And yeah, the only thing you walk away from are the cost of all of the bids that you received, but you will still get your earnest money deposit back if you're canceling within your contingency window.
Yes. So over the years, we have used these 5 tips and this process to negotiate for our clients and save them a lot of money. One time it was $120,000 in
Yeah, that's a good one.
credits and concessions. We had that big spreadsheet that was huge. Another time we had $70,000 in credits, concessions, $30,000 for another client, $25,000 for another client, and the list goes on with so many of our clients that we've been able to help over the years. So, in closing, repair request negotiations are often one of the most overlooked parts of buying a home, and yet it is a super important component to actually helping you save a ton of money. So, when you're choosing your real estate agent, make sure that they have a track record, make sure that they have a process and a strategy to help advise you through that negotiating process to save you more money when you go to buy your next property. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Please like, subscribe to our podcast, our show, and leave a review. And as always, we'll see you next time.